Bam.
Hello, I'm Joe Mo, the consignment director here at Studio Auctions, and you're watching the Break It Down show.
Hell yeah. Yeah, this is fun. I love going remote. I love coming to people's worlds. You know, one of the things I realized about having a show, Joe, is that when you go to someone else's place, I become the guest.
Yes.
And these barriers come down. Look, you guys are super warm and wonderful anyhow, but it's neat to look around in your guys' world and it's there's things being done, auction items being talked about. And every time you say an auction item, I hear it. I go, oh, that's this. Oh, that's that. You know, the other day I was in the Hollywood Bowl, saw Danny Elfman live. And,
Envious.
right. That was so wonderful. Not only, the venue is great, but he would play one of his symphonic pieces from a movie. And there's nothing I can do about it. I'm like, oh, that's Mars Attacks. I don't know anything about Mars Attacks at all. Maybe I've seen it one time, but the music is indelible. And I'm realizing so are these things that you guys are auctioning off. And behind you, we can see, there's Gone with the Wind poster. Right. We got Iron Man, Alien. Yeah.
We sell things. We don't consider them things. We consider them vessels of memories. Everybody, it doesn't matter if you're a stamp collector or coin collector, if you're a plumber or a doctor, everybody watches movies.
Right.
And so these things hold a common experience and a memory for most of the people that see them. And when you put a lightsaber on your mantle, people aren't walking past it going, that's a lightsaber. They're going, Star Wars.
Yeah.
They're maybe Star Wars was the first picture your parents took you to. Right. It was the last picture your grandparents took you to. Maybe it's the first one you took your kids to.
Yeah.
So it's multi-generational. It just keeps growing. And these things never lose their potency.
Yeah. It's amazing. I mean, if you could buy Rosebud, I can't imagine. That must be millions of dollars for something like that.
Steven Spielberg has one of those.
Right. Right.
Yeah, it would go for crazy money. And you never know. The market for vintage things just, keeps growing. There's some things that sort of get dampened, like paper. And of course, in our industry, that's 100 years old plus. There's people that fall off the edge of the earth too, like a Theda Bara or Clara Bow. These people who my generation still remember and love.
Yeah.
Little by little, we're confined to like Clark Gable, Marilyn Monroe, and the iconic. Names are more contemporary.
But still, if you're someone who loves a particular thing and you love what I don't know, I'm trying to think of somebody off the top of my head, but somebody from the 30s or the 40s. Janet Leigh, and there's like a hair clip from whatever movie it's going to be. If you're a Janet Leigh person, you don't fall off the face of the earth.
That's true. And also, as long as there is a Janet Leigh person in the world, there's a chance for them to spark interest and it's a cycle. It comes back again. So we try to do that here too.
What isn't collectible?
Anything associated with the movie is collectible. And in fact, the things that you most likely might throw out if you were an actor are things that end up being highly collectible. For example, I had a friend who was an actor that said, well, I don't have any props or costumes. I'm just going to throw everything out with my script and my call sheets. And I was like, wait a minute. He says, no, my script has lipstick on it. And I was like, wait a minute. I mean, these things, you're not going to get Frankenstein's neck bolts ever.
Right.
But what if you get a call sheet with a coffee ring on it? That's your time machine back to the production, right? That's your connection to the thing you love. And, so everything becomes valuable depending on the context of it.
Yeah. How do you source these things? I mean, what's the process for that?
Well, part of it is, a lot of us auction companies fish from the same pond. There's differences between us. The juggernauts, can do 12,000 lot sales every day. We're filling a space that's a more curated, intimate space. We do 250 lot sales, which means we can give everything attention. We can spend time with everything. And a lot of collectors prefer that, to the gigantic, juggernaut of a catalog.
Yeah. I know you can spend $1 bazillion buying stuff, whatever it's going to be. I think you talked about a product, a thing that's bought in the back, and it was like $250,000, right? So, what's like the low end? Like if I wanted to buy like a fork from The Godfather or something, what does that cost?
The magic of the auction business is it all starts much lower than it may go for, or you may get a great deal.
Yeah.
The wonderful thing for sellers at an auction is you have a chance to get participation, competition, and way above retail. But the nice thing for a buyer is in a something for everything sale, which is what we try to prevent. You have a chance to maybe get a program from a 1960s Disney film you love for $100.
Yeah.
And so we range things. We, being a small curated boutique company, we can offer things that are maybe a couple $100.
Right.
Where another company, their limit may be 5,000 to 7,000 or somewhere like that.
Yeah. When you do source something from a movie, is that going back to the executive producers then who fund the movie or the studio or whatever? I mean, some things are private collection that maybe come out, but yeah,
right.
how does that
Well,
work?
it comes from all different sources. It can come from somebody who loves a production and sought this holy grail item their whole life and finally got it, but are ready to turn it over because we're all custodians, right? We're visiting the
Yeah.
stuff
Yeah.
and until the next person gets it.
Yeah.
Or it can come from a production person who took it, took it home after production, or a producer who's doing their spring cleaning. It can also come from some technical people or some crew members who took a memento from or were given a crew gift after production. So it comes from many different sources, from the people that made the movies to the
Yeah.
people that love and collect any item from the movie.
What portion of your job is gathering, selling, packaging? There's just all these different aspects. I'm probably missing some things too.
Well, as the consignment director here, my job is to do outreach to find people that have things,
Right.
and then to discuss our strategy for giving it the best light and trying to get them top dollar. In our case, it may be since we do a small catalog, we may be able to tell the story of your family a little better than other people would. We can do a whole intro about the history of your costume designer aunt,
Yeah.
who was Marilyn Monroe's best friend, or there's all this storytelling we can do, because really everything has a story, but then it's buttoned up by what we call provenance, which is where does it come from? I can tell you a great story about how I got this cufflink from Gone with the Wind, but if I can't say, and at the end of the day, the producer of the film handed this to me or gave it to my grandfather, that's the provenance.
Yeah.
So everything has a story, but the story becomes potential zeros on
Yeah.
the price tag once the provenance enters into the whole game.
How do you prove the provenance?
Well, that's one of the wonderful and tough things about this business.
Yeah.
We all become experts in the material, and we all do our diligence. We have to trace it back. Before we'll take anything, we ask for provenance, and then we try to substantiate it. If you've dealt with props and things, there are other things that you just learn to do. You can smell resin, and you can smell foam rubber appliances to see if all of the chemical composition is leached out of it. If it's got too much sulfur in it, or if you can smell solvent, maybe it's a little too fresh to be vintage.
Right.
So there's all kinds of little tricks we learn from trying to authenticate or disqualify things based on what we've been given, what we've been told. But that's part of. I'm glad you asked that, because it's always part of the process. No matter what we get in, our process is to substantiate it, to prove it.
Yeah.
Some places choose to prove things are real because they want them to be, and some places try to prove things that are wrong, so that if they offer them, there's no doubt in their mind that they have an authentic piece. So people come at it at different angles.
So I have to ask this, and I know a number of people that have done this kind of thing, because you're tempted. You're there. You're in like the waffle shop, and there's waffles everywhere. And so I know people that have taken waffles from the waffle shop. I'm using waffles so that nobody knows anything about anything, but it's hard to do provenance when you're like, and it goes into a bag.
That's very insightful, because the fact is, one of the major tenets of the auction business across the board is confidentiality. We do not divulge buyers or sellers,
right?
For many reasons.
Yeah.
We don't want anybody with a history of buying a certain thing. We don't want to telegraph to people that they're coming after something, because we don't want to make the market keen to that, or aware of that. Then there's also people that took things or have things that they've inherited. They don't want anybody to know that they need the money, that they was a gift to them, that they're selling something, a treasure someone gave them.
Yeah.
So there's many reasons that people would rather the stuff speak for itself and be out there.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, it comes from all different sources. Directly from a producer, sometimes directly from a makeup artist, from a crew member, from a writer with sticky fingers who was in an office. That happens more than you think. And by sticky fingers, I don't mean a thief. I mean people that are sitting in an office and going, "Oh, what's that?" And the producer going, "Oh, that's some Freddy Krueger glove. It's like, take it out of here."
Yeah.
That happens more often than you think. Because writers are always around the scenes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm describing like sticky finger things, but sometimes they're like, hey, we don't have enough money. Why don't you take any one of these things on the wall too, right? So some of that happens. How do you do provenance when someone has acquired something where it was for trade, or maybe it was lifted?
Well, we can still say it comes directly from production, from a crew member. The client, the consignor, has the latitude to say, hey, I think my name attached to it is going to add value,
Right.
and I'm selling it for charity, so
Yeah.
please tell everybody it's mine. They may say, I'll tell the buyer who I am or whatever, but I just don't want it public. Or they may just say, nope, that's it. Just
Yeah.
let them know that it comes from production,
Yeah.
and we know that it's them, so
Yeah.
we know that they got it from the source. And so we sort of provide what we can, but we try never to say,
Yeah.
maybe, you know.
So when someone goes online to studio auction, is it like a barking style auction, like you know?
This is a total Hollywood, California sell
Yeah.
auction. It's very, very low key, and we wait because
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. There's 4 ways you can bid.
Right.
Come in and raise a traditional paddle.
Right.
Raise it up with your number. You can phone bid, which is the next best thing to being here because
Yeah.
you got someone who's proxy and they can tell you the nuance of the room, which to me is important. They can not only say bid, but they can say, you've got 3 people against you, 2 on the phone,
Yeah.
1 in the room. You just knock one of the phone bidders off. It gives
Yeah.
everybody the information they need to make the best choice. Then there's absentee bids, which means they're in the auctioneer's book.
Right.
And we go to it and we say, we're going to open it. We have an auction. We have an absentee bid of 500, 550. Absentee bid 600, and that bid is your highest bid that you're willing to
Right.
bid. It's in the
Right.
auctioneer's book. It's advanced till you've prevailed or you've been beaten.
Right.
Either can happen. And then the final way is you do it all yourself through the keyboard.
Yeah.
Just sit there and punch in your bid through the keyboard. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of moving parts. So in our auctions, it's very, very, you know, I have 500 online. Is that okay? I've got another bid, 550 on the floor. We're going to wait for internet. You know,
Yeah.
we're very patient because we know that all the moving parts.
Yeah.
We need to make it fair for everybody. So we try to move it along. But and also if somebody gets disconnected on the phone or something happens, we'll stop the auction. We'll say,
Right.
just hold on a second. I got to get my guy back.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Or you know, I'm calling France and they haven't picked up.
Right. Yeah. No, that's fantastic, and really neat that you guys take the time to allow it to happen. There's still action, though, I imagine, where people get
It's
fired
exciting, especially when a piece is being put up. I mean, depending on how popular it is, it's, you know, there's people that really want it and don't want to let go of it, and they'll keep bidding, and that's what makes the excitement. You know, that by, you know, contrast, there may be something that takes 1 bid. You never know. That's the, you know.
up. Yeah.
So it's our job to try to create an estimate that doesn't undervalue something, but
Right.
leaves room for people to come in the pool and get a chance at it.
You guys are, when we did a show with Jane the other day,
Mhm.
her godfather, Mr. Herman, is selling a crypt.
That's
That
right.
has to be very unique. How do you determine the market for a crypt? The location's great, but I mean,
The first, I think the first rule of selling something that's offbeat
mhm.
and a little bit unconventional is a belief in the piece.
Yeah.
And Jane and I went around the block. Jane and I followed each other from 1 or 2 companies before I ended up at studio auctions. When we got in touch, and I said, "Okay, I'm director. I'm taking this, and we're going to do it." And she'd done so much to promote her
Yeah.
you know, uncle or her godfather,
Yeah.
Jerry Herman. You know, just a classic musical theater composer of the highest order. But you know, it's all about imagination. You know, sparking the imagination of a public. Who wouldn't want? I mean, Hugh Hefner paid at the time $75,000 just to be near her.
Yeah.
So if he was willing to pay to be there, I hear there's a rumor that somebody who had the crypt above hers asked his wife to make sure to bury him upside down, so he was facing her. So there's all kinds of mythology about it. It's in a really interesting place. Hey, hello.
Yeah.
Sorry,
So
it's the drawbridge.
no, it's all right. It's
Yeah.
a magical place full of magical things. Yeah. So when you have something like Marilyn Monroe's crypt, let's say that my father is buried on the other side, you know, on his side towards Maryland, and I'm like, I'm going to pull him out of there, and you sell a youth crypt. I mean, is that even possible too, or?
You know, that's a really interesting idea. I'm not sure that they allow that. I mean, it's
Yeah.
your property. You'd
Right.
think that you'd have but a detail I can tell you is that it will fit 1 coffin, or you're allowed 4 urns.
Oh, okay.
So there you go.
4 urns.
Yeah, so
That's an
the whole
interesting
family
number.
can
Yeah.
be near Maryland. And
Do you,
and Jerry.
and you don't have to answer this, but is there a market estimate for what that crypt will go for?
I think we've got it at a 150 to 250.
Yeah.
I think, and I think that's. I mean, I think that's a song. Considering it's not that much above what you probably have to pay just to get space there, because it's pretty crowded
Yeah.
and it's full of stars at
Oh my
Westwood.
gosh, right.
So I think that that's really reasonable, and just for the privilege of being able to say that's mine, and
Yeah.
have be next to all those lipstick kisses on that marble slab, and to be in Jerry Herman's. We talked about
Yeah.
all of that, but Jerry Herman, I mean,
Oh my
to
gosh.
me, he's the value to me, because I'm a musical guy. I love those, and
Yeah.
Hello Dolly,
Yeah.
and Maine. He's a
Oh.
classic. So.
Yeah, I told you the other day I saw Bernadette Peters at the Segerstrom, and when you think about his just innate, his God-given ability to make music, then you see it performed, and you just think like, what on earth in his head happens to allow him to, here's what I hear, a little piccolo, a little bassoon. It's
And
just
it doesn't
incredible.
happen often that you leave a theater singing anymore.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But those tunes you leave humming after one viewing.
Yeah.
It's definitely an art.
Incredibly sticky. You're right. And so there's the Maryland part, there's the neighborhood, and there's also the other thing I'm curious with when you're trying to value these things. And someone wants to buy it. Let's say that Chris Hamilton from Bone Gap, Illinois, is going to buy this thing. Is the cemetery going to be like, hey, this is for celebrities? That can they limit it or no?
No, it's their property. It's paid for, and all of the privileges and rights of your presence there is taken care of, and cleaning, and doing the lawn and the garden. It's just transferred to the person that now gets to use it.
Yeah. Do you think the cemetery will bid on it, since it's going to go for a song, then repackage it and sell it again?
That's not a bad idea. Believe me, we reach out to everybody. That's our diligence, as ultimately, after we've had all the fun of pretending we have a big collection that we can't afford ourselves, our diligence is really selling to the people that will want it. So we outreach to everybody possible. So it's a good chance that they could take a shot at it.
Right. And then when you're trying to curate this market, and you've got obviously people like, oh yeah, Jeff, he always buys things. I'll make sure you let you know. But how do you expand that? Like, how do you think through the process of who should we get a hold of?
Well, in our business, it's sometimes as important to spark the imagination of the public, pop culture, as it is the buyer, because they're your foot soldiers. They're excited. I mean, look, I people say, do you collect? And I say, I don't have to. I have the best collection in the world for 3 months. Then we sell it to people who can afford it, and they get a new one. So that's, I love it. And there's a lot of people out there who say, I can never afford Bruce Lee's gi. But you know what? So and so is going to want to know about this. So it's a community. There's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of I wish I could have it, but if I can't, I want to know it's in the family. So it's a lot of fun, and if you get it out into the public, usually the right people get to see it.
Yeah, my show's kind of like that, where I know enough people now that are like, hey, you should get so-and-so, because I've had other so-and-sos. That person's like, oh yeah, of course I'll come on, and I get to talk to you. And it really does kind of start to have its own life. And my show is bigger than me. And so I can say, hey, I'm going to do this. And like, where are you from? Oh, I've heard of that. And then come on, So there is that part where we're selling magic. We're selling great conversations in my case. And so people do show up and come and like, oh, I was been waiting for that. I know about you guys. I follow your auctions all the time, that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, you're exactly the kind of personality that works best in our business. It's all about engagement, even pre-social media engagement that we have to be so aware of. But just the whole idea of being enthusiastic about a piece and infecting someone else with that enthusiasm, putting it into context. When you say, hey, this sat there on the set of Dracula. This Forrest Gump, wore these 10 issues, and the incredible, community that it makes, and the excitement about, the movie making process and being in the company of that. It's not Tom Hanks, but it's close, and people get very excited about that. So sharing our enthusiasm for it, which is sincere, we love the stuff as much as anybody. Really helps the business just in a natural and organic way.
Yeah, that's great. Like above let's see if I can do this right. My shoulder. That's Batman. That's an actual
That is a
costume.
Kilmer suit. Yeah, that is a superhero suit that was screen worn. Cape, the torso, codpiece, cowl.
There it is.
Yeah, and the boots. We will tell you in a description too. The boots and the gloves are added for display. And when you go to our catalog and look, we put as much detail as we can, these things aren't cheap.
Yeah.
You know, these things are, collectors really want to know. Also, what your audience should know is if they have an interest in anything, they're more than welcome to call us and arrange for preview.
Okay.
Where we'll pull out the piece, they can actually examine it, take some time with it, and when you're spending that kind of money on something, it's only fair that you get a shot to come and see it in person.
What's the number people should call?
Oh, I'll tell you right here.
All right. And I'm gonna do this in the meantime.
It is 747 241 8255.
8255. But everybody, you can look down below. I'm typing it as we're talking, and you'll be able to, like I'm like Vanna White, reveal. There you go. And then when people want to go to the website, what website do they go to?
www.studioauctions.com.
Studioauctions.com. And there is that link.
Yeah. And make sure you look, you'll see the online catalog where it has all the individual pieces. But there's also a flip book if you want to have the real catalog experience. And that has a lot of the introductions and all of the nuance and color commentary.
Yeah.
And stuff.
There's our neighbor is moving into the next phase of her life, and she's going to do other things. So they were auctioning off her life and everything that was in there. And the auction house brings things to kind of spruce up the place and sell other items that haven't sold before. I walked by this old, maybe 4-inch by 5-inch little mystery novels in a series, like the kind you might have bought in a newspaper back in the old days, or the back of a magazine. And those things were just screaming at me like, hey, and I don't need a bunch of extra stuff in my house, but I'm like, man, if I was going to buy anything, it'd be this right here. I didn't even know I wanted that. I don't even know who the author was. I don't know anything about it, but it was old enough and interesting enough that it just called to me. And so how do you communicate that to someone who's online or anything else? Like because this isn't something you plan to buy,
Right. There are specialists and people interested in every single facet, including paper, which ebbs and flows, because there's a new generation of people that just don't attach memory to the hard copy of anything. They're, if it's an image from a photo, that's good enough for them. They need to have the vintage photograph. And whatnot. But, we tell the story. For example, some of the greatest things I've personally handled, the things I've liked best is the literature. I love handling, William Peter Blatty's 400 plus page manuscript of The Exorcist with all of his notations as he was adapting it and whatnot. Yeah. Just to go through that, the genesis of the beginning of something that became such a classic movie that I love. So we sell the context of things. Yeah. We'll say things like, this script has actual lipstick or theatrical blood from the scene. You know what I mean? Yeah. There's all of those little touchstones that people that really resonate with people and place them there. Yeah. With this object.
I was at an auction one time and they had some Matisse paintings, and I was like, I actually can buy that right now. Oh my God. Because it wasn't that much money. It was like $2,000 at the time I worked in Iraq. So I had a lot of money. And I was like, I should buy that. It was a good thing I didn't, because my life was crazy still. And it probably would have been in a box somewhere and left out in the garage.
It was crazy.
Yeah. Well, that's true too. But it's a place where you can impulse buy, but
Yeah. I mean, you have to, we try to make it so that you have to make an intentional, bid. But people do get swept up. Yeah. And luckily, most of the time people are getting swept up in something they really want to have. Yeah. It's not generally impulse in the way that, oh, that would be looking nice on my mantle. I never thought of that before. I'm going to get it. Let me throw $10,000 at it. Yeah. It will be, I really want to have that. I'm not going to get a shot at it again. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going, and we're careful to tell people at the beginning, please be aware of taxes and all of the things that shipping, things like that.
Oh my gosh.
We don't want anybody to be, we're here in the happy business.
Right. Right.
We want everybody to be glad.
Like behind you are some pretty big items there. The alien is not the alien, but the Predator is outsized for shipping, so you have to spend a lot of money to get that.
Static, and we call it a static figure. There's no moving parts; it doesn't come apart. So you're going to crate it, and it may cost more than you pay for the piece. Right. And people do that. You'd be surprised. People will buy, and people crate things. I've seen people crate, make a $1,200 crate for a $400 vase, and I've seen people have shove a $200,000 costume in a FedEx box. People, people can do what they want once they have it, and hopefully they preserve it and share it. And
I know you said you don't really collect yourself because you get to curate the collections, so you sort of always have one. But is there anything that you have bought that sits around it?
You know, I came up in the world of collecting with the old school collectors, a guy named Forrest J. Ackerman,
Uh,
who sort of created movie memorabilia collector. He was the guy diving in dumpsters in the 20s and 30s, grabbing stuff that was meant to be recycled,
yeah.
King Kong dinosaurs,
Right.
things like that. And he edited a magazine called Famous Monsters of Filmland magazine. And he was an incredible, generous person. He opened his 800,000 item house to the public every Saturday. You could walk around, and little kids with names that would become famous, like Steven Spielberg and Guillermo del Toro and Rick Baker and Kirk Hammett. All these kids were disciples of his. And he really taught me that, you know, you share it, and there's going to be a time where you either are going to pass it on or you're going to be buried with it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'll never forget, I asked him one day when he'd given a really valuable piece to someone. You know, I said, Forey, how can you've taken, you know, it's been with you for 30 years. How can you do this? He said, well, pal, this is the way I think about it. I've taken care of it a long time now. It can take care of me.
Yeah.
And when I talk to a lot of older people who are thinking about their collection and their estates, that usually rings a bell. You know, they're like, you know, you're right. And then the next thing is, you know, you've got 40 things here. You know, whoever buys these they're going to preserve and take care of it much better than you could.
Right.
What's the future that you see for this?
Yeah.
And someone will say, well, I figure my family will probably throw it in a dumpster because they don't care about it like I do, or
Sure.
I don't know, or I'll give it to a museum and maybe they'll value it, maybe they won't. You know, this is a way make some money for your grandkids, you know, trust fund or
Sure.
college fund, and have it go on in posterity to be preserved and shared and treasured, just like you did all those years.
I don't know if you recall this, but maybe like 20 years ago, Steve Wynn was opening the Wynn
Mhm.
Casino, and someone was talking to him, and he turned around to show him the painting they were going to talk about, and it's like a Degas or something. And he put his arm through it, and you know, first off, it's insured,
Mhm.
no big deal. And now Steve Wynn has put his arm through it, so they fix it and everything.
Right.
But now it's worth more money.
Right.
So it's like,
Right.
yeah, that's kind of how you talk about the taking care of these
Mhm.
things. Who owns it? What happens to it?
Mhm.
You know, like the Stanley Cup gets passed around,
Yeah.
it becomes just this priceless thing because of that.
And the memory really is in the fact that you got it
Right.
for the period of time that you had it.
Yeah.
And with the collectibles, the idea is you've done your time with it, you know.
Yeah.
And none of us own anything because it all stays behind, you know.
Yeah.
And so when is the right time for you to pass it on to someone who's going to have the joy that you had all these years, you know, having it, and maybe you take a trip to the Bahamas or something.
Yeah, or more. I was listening to a show talking about the Apollo 15 astronauts that got in a little bit of trouble for bringing stuff up into space. It's like, hey, that's government access. Costs money to put that stuff up there. But all those guys had a little stash of things, and most of it was legal. But they weren't supposed to profit off it. But then, you know, like, hey, it's from Apollo 11 and went up with Neil Armstrong. And so he dies, and someone's going to benefit from it. So now it's his kids. And I'm not judging this. I'm just saying all of a sudden, an envelope becomes worth $100,000 because it's been to space and it was Neil Armstrong. It's amazing what happens. Is it better to hold on to a collection and sell it in mass, or do you think is it better to kind of judge the market?
You know, an estate sale, it depends, because of people's estates, generally, even people that are genre collectors or specialty collectors, they have a ton of other stuff too.
Yeah.
So it's tough. I always believe that you take, you know, you use the right tool for the job. So if it's movie memorabilia, you go to a movie memorabilia house. If it's jewelry, you go someplace that specializes in jewelry. Right. Many of us do multi-platform, you know, and different disciplines and different specialties, but they're definitely, you know, one of the nice things about this business is it keeps you honest.
Yeah.
If they're not 100% happy, you don't get to be your percentage of happy.
Right.
So you want to be above board and honest, and it doesn't help you to take something that you can't do best for.
Right.
So having worked at all the major companies, basically, I'll tell people sometimes, that's not you'll do better with my friends, you know, and they do that for me too. So it's a really nice community as well, even though we're highly competitive.
Yeah.
And, you know, thumbing our noses at each other often.
You got to,
you know, we also, our common charge is to take care of the consignment.
Right. So. And is there a company that takes care of cars in general? Because there's so many cars.
Yeah, there's specialty car, you know, in the last company I was at Bonhams, they had a car division, and many places specialize in, you know, in really high-end cars.
Right. I know we're talking about a crypt coming up. What else is like that, where it's just like an odd thing where you're like, let me think about this?
Well, you know, last sale we had a Excuse me.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm a little froggy.
Yeah. So right, everybody gets a little fun here.
Cheers.
Make sure you go to the Break It Down Show, breakitdownshow.com, click the PayPal link, put a little subscription in there. That'll help out old Pedro as I go on the road. All this stuff costs money. So
It does.
Great. Yeah. So we were talking about crazy things.
Yeah. Well, the last sale we had a couple of license plates. One
Mm.
said movies and one said cinema. And in LA, those are the only, there's only one copy of those, and you can buy them. Title can be transferred. You can put them on your car anywhere.
Yeah.
But people have spent millions of dollars on. I think the crypto license plate sold for a few $1 million.
Jeez.
So you never know. And then there's the challenge of trying to find the market for it.
Yeah.
Because someone's going to want it. Can you get to that person?
Yeah.
So being a boutique company, we can take a lot of chances on some stuff. Now, we won't take anything that anyone could consider offensive or degrading or disrespectful to a celebrity.
Right.
Really hyper personal items.
Right.
And if somebody does give us an estate and we were to find any personal information, we would return that.
Yeah.
But we do have more latitude to try to handle stuff creatively, some offbeat stuff that other people won't touch.
I don't want to be crass or anything, but as you get more further off in the distance and you're more deader than ever, does that hyper personal stuff become more available? And I don't know what it would be specifically. We don't got to get into all that, but as you get further and further away and people are interested, like, hey, this is her comb for her hair, not like a decorative.
That kind of stuff, vanity things and everything, but like, undergarments and, and like even highly personal notes to somebody, that things, were never meant to see the light of day necessarily, because, to do this job, we have a lot of reverence and respect for all of the people that are in the industry, from the designers to the movie stars and all across the board. So we feel kind of protective of them, and at the same time we're kind of selling pieces of their legacy. We try to maintain their integrity.
I know we've talked about Predator, who's behind you right there. There's also smaller items, and you have one with you. So
this is a good one. I'm happy to share this. Part of this job, the most fun is sharing this stuff, and like I tell people when they come into a Star Wars preview or they come and see Star Trek, stuff's never going to be together again.
Right.
If you're seeing 50 pieces, they're not going to be together again. This is your chance to really see them.
Right.
But recently, there's been a lot of interest in the Game of Thrones material and some big sales, but this piece did not come up till now, and it is the Jon Snow dagger. which is absolutely important, because it is in the very final episode. This is the dagger that he uses to kill Daenerys to save the world. And so this is Kit Harington's hero. We call a hero prop the beauty prop, the one that takes all the close-up shots. The one, if it's a blank firing gun, is the one that's the most functional. Then we have different stages, like there would have been one of these cast in plastic, blunted, so that it was safe to run with. There would have been a sponge rubber one, so that it wouldn't hurt the actor in any battle scenes and things like that. So there's heroes, there's hero, there can be hero resin copies, there can be foam stunt copies, but this would be the premium prime example relic upon which all the others would be based or cast from or created after. So this is a really important piece to that.
So Jon Snow's, whatever that is. What is that? A cavalier? What is that? We call that now.
Well, we call it a dagger, but I mean, most importantly, we call it a signature weapon, because it's his sidearm. It's he wears, it's part of his costume, and it has such an important role in the ending of the epic, groundbreaking series.
We just talked about hyper-personal things, and that just got me thinking. We had a stuntman on. He was in Planet of the Apes, and he was wearing the ape costume and riding a horse, and he had to go through water. And, these things get dangerous. And so he almost dies because the sponge in the ape suit fills up, and it becomes like 400 pounds, and the horse can't handle it.
Yeah.
He's in a river. Everything worked out, but that isn't always true.
That would scare the heck out of me.
Oh, I know.
Claustrophobia alone.
Oh, yeah. And I think part of that scene makes it into the movie. Either way, you have these things where tragedies associated with the thing, like the pistol from Rust that may hit the market one day. Does that kind of thing, that creates value, doesn't it? When something kind of tragedy associated with it? It
can, that's really not our space, sort of sensational, kind of notorious things.
Right.
We're more about the fantasy and fun and
Okay.
imagination of filmmaking.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's no denying that or the blank firing gun from The Crow,
Yeah. Right.
or the other things wouldn't have value. I guess if enough time passes, they're relics.
Yeah.
I mean, in historical, I mean, I think Roosevelt was the one that had the attempted assassination. I remember when I worked at Profiles in History, I think that they'd sold the gun that shot him as well as the folded up speech that saved him with the bullet hole in it in blood. So, I mean, that kind of stuff as historical, memorabilia and historical, objects. I think there's a fine line between those. So I could imagine selling, at least the Crow gun,
It's so interesting. There's so many questions in my head. So I was watching, I don't know if it was the most recent, but the Mission Impossible, where Tom does that stunt off the helicopter onto like the bag of cargo, that cargo net with a box or whatever it was in it. Is that valuable, or is that just
anything we call screen used?
Yeah.
Anything that you can screen
right?
match,
Right.
that you can show being used.
Yeah.
It adds a zero. I mean, it adds value to it,
Right.
because it's not only reminiscent, but it's there.
Right.
And it was present during that scene,
Yeah.
which may be your favorite scene ever,
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, I mean, anything screen used, that's kind of the gold standard of this business. Screen used, screen matched.
Right.
Because they make so many multiples of things. It can be screen used, but sometimes you get the one where you can match the scratch or the groove, and the wood grain, or on a costume, the plaid pattern, where the polka dots land on the costume as there were. There's all those little details that we look for that can really add value to things.
Who are the stars or the movies that really are hot right now? Like what jumps out?
Multi-generational titles. So, Star Wars, Star Trek, Indiana Jones, Back to the Future. More currently, Alien, Predator. The horror movies always do great, and Halloween, and Nightmare Before Elm Street, Nightmare on Elm Street,
right,
and Nightmare Before Christmas. That is a seasonal, chestnut that people never get tired of, and that's the kind of thing. I say it goes out and it doesn't come back.
Right.
There's some things that we can sell that are going to rotate in 5-10 years, but for some reason, Nightmare Before Christmas stuff, it goes and it sticks. So it's hard to find new stuff, and people hang on to it when they do. So.
Why do people love that movie so much? I mean, I certainly do, but what is it?
I think it is the whimsy and craft, the design of and just the imagination of Tim Burton and his style. And then it's a seasonal movie. I mean, the two most popular holidays are probably Christmas and Halloween. I think it was Easter before, but I think Halloween is overtaken it. And so there's your favorite holidays of the year. An incredibly multi-generational title that you can watch, like Wizard of Oz, every year. It's musical. It ticks so many boxes. And Disney still promotes it, and there's still a presence in the Disney, universe. So I mean, I think that's a prime example of something that never loses its potency, and that people can't get enough of.
And then over your shoulder is Gone with the Wind and Clark Gable. And so I look into my history of my family quite a lot. And I kept hearing like, oh, you look like Clark Gable. You look like Clark, So there's all these people that are into Clark Gable, but also Gone with the Wind is a movie that represents part of our history that we're not comfortable with, yet it's an epic and it's hugely successful. So how does that legacy go?
It can soften, trends in social, temperature on certain things can soften things, but I don't think true movie aficionados, especially people that are old school collectors, I don't think that they let the magic of the craft and the importance of the film and the storytelling. I don't think that they completely they acknowledge it, but they don't completely let it overtake their appreciation of the movie and its place in our history as a film. And then it's all of us can observe things that were different and maybe have changed and should have changed, or but I think that when we watch Gone with the Wind, it's really about when you remove all of the window dressing, it really is a romance, and it really is an epic romance in a time of incredible conflict, and I think that those things don't diminish because of any politics or anything like that.
It's like Rocky was a love story. It wasn't about fighting. It was about him and Adrian, Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, everything's a love story. Bad News Bear is a love story. They're all love stories. Do movie houses, do they make props with the intention of like, hey, we're going to make a bunch of these things and we're going to make sure that, you know, Joe gets them because there's revenue to make there?
Nowadays,
Yeah.
people are very well aware that things are collector's items. You know, I think that term was coined in the 50s, 60s. And as soon as that happened, you know, everybody was buying 2 copies of a magazine. So everything kind of diminished the value of things. But if you think about it, movie memorabilia, you know, they may have made multiples of them and people may know a value for them. But while the value may you know, diminish a little bit because we all know there's multiples and there's different degrees of quality and importance. If you think about it, we're getting further and further away from practical effects, props and things. So these things become more valuable to have something that you can hold in your hand as opposed to the memory of a CG object or something. And I know a lot of the people right now who are the movers and shakers, the Guillermos, the Peter Jacksons, the Lucas, all those guys still have a great affection for practical props and things like that. So as long as they're in charge of the business, people are still going to be generating maquettes and objects and weapons and jewelry and you know, ornaments and all that stuff is still going to be, you know, something that they love. But who knows, that window may close up in 10 years. You never know.
No, I mean, it's the other day, someone had purchased chat.com and then that was sold to ChatGPT for $15 million, and that turned around a $5 million profit, right? And so maybe it will be that like, oh, my Adobe login is I'm going to auction that off so you can have all of my shapes or Hans Zimmer, like, and all of my sounds, you know, because that exists. It's in the cloud, but it exists.
Right. And you never know. For example, you know, we talked about photography early on, and I think 10 years ago, 7 maybe, if we had a photography archive of 20,000 people there, I knew there'd the 5 people that would show up to preview every piece. Front, back, front, through the whole thing. Sometimes it'd take 3 days. Now, here's a collection. I want those 15 pieces. People aren't doing the big buy of the wholesale buy of everything. Everybody is selective. Everybody has their specialty. Everybody has their things they want. Another example is Westerns. You know, we once did a sale that had some John Wayne, probably the only existent examples of early John Wayne lobby cards. You know, those cards that used to go in the marquees and the lobbies of the old movie houses. And the buyer, the consignor must have paid thousands of dollars for them within a 10-year period. But by the time we were selling them, we couldn't get like 500, 600 for them because, you know, Westerns is one of those markets. One comes out and suddenly it's popular, but it's not like horror movies are cranked out all the time. You know, we're horror, you know. But Westerns are kind of a specialized taste in this day and age, and they don't get made every single day. So, you know.
And John Wayne's reputation has evolved over the years too, where he's less of an icon, still iconic, still an airport named after him, but there's less of a crowd clamoring for him. What else do we need to know about auctions and everything else? We're here at Studio Auctions. I got the link down below. There's people coming in right now.
I can't wait. Well, we're going to be having a preview next weekend. And so people will be welcome to come and see the pieces in person. People that want to preview, or people that want to, you know, just have a look at things, you know, and treat it as a little mini museum. So that's happening. They can always call us for condition reports, we call them. People that are far away that see something in the auction that they're interested in but want more details about, they just give us a call at that number that you showed earlier, and they can get a condition report, which means one of the catalogers actually can take a picture of a label or can elaborate on something that you're curious about the piece. Other than that, consigners, you know, if you have anything, don't ever hesitate to give us a call. If you have something you're about to throw out, but you're like, give us a call. You never know. And also, if you're in our industry, which is having a tough time now in Hollywood, you know, we're happy to have you consign stuff. We'll make special terms for you, because I know a lot of my friends who are writers and who are in film business are suffering a little bit as we wait for everything to regulate. I'm happy to help out. You know, we're very sympathetic to that, and you know, again, confidentiality is key, and we'll work out special terms so that you can keep the most profit if it'll help you. So
I love it. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show. Just for everybody watching again too. There's the link.
I'm guessing
there.
it's here.
like that. That's the website. I mean, that's really where you guys are going to want to probably go, or you can call in, and these guys are going to call and talk to you. People come by, as you can see during the show. We've had a couple of things happen, so it's really neat that you guys do this. I'm excited about it. I love the Bruce Lee nunchucks, all these great things.
Bruce Lee stuff, the Iron Man suit. I don't know if one of those has ever come to market. That's a great thing for people.
Yeah.
And even if you can't own it, you can sing about it like we do, and we would appreciate you letting anybody that needs to know what's coming up. That's the heart of our business, and we're all hypothetical collectors, even though most of us can't afford to buy these pieces. We get to visit it,
but there's a lot of things you can't afford here too, though.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And buy what you love.
Right. Yeah.